Good evening. Thank you for joining us for another day of our special coverage from Sean Grayson's murder trial. Technical testimony dominated today's proceedings. Now, as a reminder, Grayson is accused of killing Sonia Massey in her home in July 2024 using unnecessary force as a Sangamon County deputy. First, we're going to turn things over to Liz Lape. She'll give us a recap of what was discussed in court, and then we're going to go through that testimony in greater detail. We'll turn things over to Liz.
Thursday morning in the Peoria County Courthouse, we heard from multiple forensic scientists and an expert on police policy. At some points, the dueling attorneys tensely threw out objections at each other, and one witness spent more than an hour on the stand. Testimony focused on technical aspects of the case, like the evidence collected from the scene. Testimony then shifted toward establishing if Massey was having a mental health crisis and what police training dictates officers should do in those situations. An Elgin police sergeant who trained Grayson on crisis intervention says the method focuses on de-escalation and active listening, but lacks mental health crisis training. Another witness, a retired police chief, testified Grayson violated those crisis training protocols. The police chief said Massey was clearly in a mental health crisis, and he criticized Grayson for making threats and using force. A forensic pathologist testified on Massey's injuries as well, saying she might have survived the headshot with immediate surgery, but the defense objected to that, calling it speculation. Massey tested positive for THC and gabapentin, a medication used for neurological conditions. It was a truly impactful day in court on Thursday. We'll continue to follow this story and keep you updated on the latest developments. In Peoria, Liz Lape, 25 News.
Thank you, Liz. We're going to dig a little deeper into some of that testimony now. As I mentioned, it was a less dramatic day of testimony, instead focused on technical aspects of the case. Much of that testimony came from crime scene investigators and forensic experts here. Our reporter Liz Lape said there were also less people in the courtroom today. The first witness called to the stand was State Trooper Adam Markwell, who described and confirmed that 3 shell casings were found on scene. 2 were initially recovered, but investigators went back for the 3rd after reviewing body camera footage and hearing 3 shots in the video. Investigators also recovered the medical kit used on scene. On cross-examination, the defense questioned Markwell on where the body camera was positioned on Grayson's body. Markwell confirmed that it was situated at his chest. Grayson's body camera was not recording until his weapon was drawn on Massey. The second witness was another ISP trooper, Emily Maulding. She testified on processing the evidence collected on scene. Prosecutors presented a photo of the robe Massey was wearing, which was covered in blood. Maulding said more evidence was collected from the home about 2 weeks after the shooting, including the pot which held the boiling water. That pot was shown in court today, old and blackened on the bottom from use. Maulding was not cross-examined. The third witness was a forensic scientist, Hallie Carls-Miller, who specializes in firearm identification. She confirmed the shell casings matched Grayson's 9mm handgun. On cross-examination, she was asked if she was certain the bullets matched. She reaffirmed it was her expert opinion. Then the jury left the room as prosecutors and the defense argued over how many autopsy photos should be shown in court. The defense argued it was unnecessary as they would not contest the cause of death and said the photos might upset the jury and bias their decision. The judge ultimately pulled one photo and warned those in the courtroom that the photos might be hard to look at. The objections, though, continued as the doctor who performed Massey's autopsy testified. He said Massey was shot once through the left eye. Many family members of hers sighed, cried, one even left the courtroom as those photos were presented. And as a fair warning, we're going to get into some grisly details here over the next minute or so. The doctor, Nathaniel Patterson, said the bullet did not enter Massey's brain. He said the left side of her brain was injured. She also had a hairline fracture on her skull, but he believes the bullet hit her carotid artery and she bled to death. Now, he said that injury could be survivable if the bleeding was stopped quickly and the injured person was taken into surgery immediately. On cross-examination, though, the defense pushed Patterson, saying he was speculating on whether or not Massey could have survived. Now, some people can survive gunshot wounds to the carotid artery, but some don't, and it depends on a lot of factors. Patterson also revealed on cross-examination that Massey had Delta-9, which is a form of THC, and gabapentin, a neurological drug that can help with seizures, tremor, and neuralgia in her system when she died. Now, the defense asked if those drugs could cause confusion and tiredness. The doctor said yes. The last two witnesses focused on establishing if Massey was having a mental health crisis and what police training says about those situations. A retired Elgin police sergeant, Anthony Regano, trained Grayson in crisis intervention methods. He said the training focused on listening and de-escalation, but admitted on cross-examination that there isn't a specific focus on mental health in those trainings. Retired former police chief Lou Dekmar has reviewed thousands of use of force incidents. Dekmar said it should have been clear to Grayson that Massey was experiencing a mental health crisis, and he believed that Grayson's actions weren't in line with training protocol, specifically pointing to times Grayson shouted at or threatened Massey. Dekmar testified that Grayson may have escalated the situations with his actions and that by his viewing, Massey did not pose a threat. He also said Grayson violated policies after the shooting, pointing to the way he spoke about Massey to fellow officers on scene, at one point saying that B word is crazy. The defense tried to poke holes in Dekmar's testimony. Our reporter says there were some tense exchanges between the two. The prosecution eventually objected for badgering the witness, and the judge agreed. That was the final witness testifying today, and that is going to wrap up our special coverage for today. The prosecution has a list of 20 witnesses they plan to call. By our count, at the end of today, it appeared they had called 9 of them so far. We don't know how many witnesses the defense plans to call, but court will be back in session again tomorrow, and we will once again have a reporter there. You can get many of these updates and a lot of these details at 25newsnow.com or with our 25 News app. In fact, if you have the app, we'll send you alerts on this case and all of the other local stories we cover. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.